Hello there, my name is Andrew Davidson. I'm a Norwegian-British national living in UK at the moment. I'm in London. I'm a senior physiotherapist who is based in East London, and I've been working with various complex pain conditions for a very long time. Thank you to Katarina for giving me the opportunity to share a couple of little tips for you guys. I'm hoping I'll be able to help you with some of your conditions later on in life. We're using the Norwegian approach of hygge as essential to our approach to therapy. So let's get started, shall we? We're going to talk about back pain. Now, the first thing to keep in mind is that basically everyone, quite literally everyone in the world has back pain. There's about 80 to 85%, I'm convinced it's closer to 100. It is such a common condition that everyone will struggle with it at some point in their lives. But the vast majority of people, it goes away and it stays away. They heal, they go back to normal. It doesn't bother you, it doesn't worry you too much, it goes away. But for a significant amount of people, back pain becomes chronic, it becomes an ongoing issue that essentially takes over their lives. And there are some helpful steps that you can take to avoid that. Okay, so let's start with point number 1. Now, with the rise of technology in the community today, we expect things to happen quickly. We expect pictures to load in seconds, and we expect to be able to have access to the internet ASAP. The back does not heal any quicker than it did hundreds of years ago. Nothing has really changed other than the fact that we have slightly better painkillers and antibiotics. Other than that, your bones will knit themselves together. Now, the normal healing time for a fracture is 6 to 8 weeks. The normal healing time for a torn muscle is 6 to 8 weeks. The normal healing time for a torn ligament, for a sprained ankle, for a torn tendon, for a ruptured blood vessel, pretty much anything in the body will heal within 6 to 8 weeks. Now, that doesn't mean you don't regain function before then, but 6 to 8 weeks is the minimal amount of time before we would consider tissue to have fully healed. That's the first thing to keep in mind. It takes a little bit longer than you think. Stick with it and relax. 6 weeks, 8 weeks, not 2 or 3 days. That's the first thing to keep in mind. So the second thing to keep in mind is that this is slightly because of influences from media and from TV shows. There is this idea that if you have a problem in the body, regardless of what it is, you need to scan it so that you can see what's wrong, so that you can see what's going on. And there is the idea that everything has to have a diagnosis or a label. But unfortunately, that might be the case for bacteria or maybe viruses. You can do a blood test and actually determine exactly what bacteria is the problem, give it an antibiotic and it goes away. Musculoskeletal injuries do not work like that. If you have a back injury and if you scan it, you will 100% find something. But you have no idea what your back looked like before you had your injury, which is why most people who have scans when they have back pain end up experiencing more pain later on, because they are now acutely aware of stuff that has nothing to do with their back pain, but you will attribute meaning to it. To give you an example, 67% of the pain-free population have dysbulges with no symptoms at all. That is the most common thing to find on an MRI scan of a lumbar spine. If you go up to the age of 40, 80% of people will have dysbulges on their scans. And if you also look at wear and tear changes, it's closer to 98% in the neck and in the lumbar spine for people over 25, 35 and 45 years of age. It is very common to find changes, and actually they do more harm than good. If you need a scan, we will give you one based on your clinical presentation, but there is only 0.1 to maybe 0.5% of all back cases that actually require a scan. The vast majority of the rest of them, we won't change how we manage you at all, and we don't need it, and neither do you. Alright, last one, number 3. Pain is the single most complicated human experience that we have. Pain is different based on your culture, based on your upbringing, your age, your gender, your genetics, what part of history you happen to have grown up in. Pain is a almost entirely subjective experience that is influenced by what we call multi-dimensional processes. Now, I'm not going to go into the detail of how it works, because to be honest, I'm not entirely sure I understand it myself. But what I do know is that pain does not mean damage, and damage does not mean pain. This is a very important message to get across, because a lot of the time we think that when we have an injury and when we have pain, it must mean that something wrong has happened, something bad has happened to the body. Either muscles must be out of place or torn, or discs must be compressing something, or the spine must be out of alignment, and there is no evidence to support any of those statements. We know that pain is experienced based on how much threat you feel that you are under. Pain is a protective mechanism But if you hurt your back and you think or are convinced that you have cancer, that you have a broken back, or that you're going to end up in a wheelchair like your old grandmother, you will be afraid of moving, you will change your movement pattern, you will change your breathing pattern, hell, you'll even change the way you think. There will be a literal cortical change on your mind based on how you experience that case. The very first thing to accept is that pain, while it is awful and unpleasant, says nothing about the level of trauma that has happened in your particular case. Coming to people like us and letting us explain what has actually happened in your tissue will do wonders for your experience of that. Here we go. So it's more helpful for me to talk about what you can do and hopefully give you a positive message, because like I said, everyone has back pain at some point in their lives. It is not going to change your life forever, and it does not have to be something that takes over your life and stops you from doing what you want to do. So the very first thing to keep in mind is that it is perfectly reasonable to rest for a couple of days when you have an acute injury. If you have a horrible game of football and you feel something pop in your back, it's perfectly reasonable to rest and take it easy for a day or two. But where people go wrong is where they take it easy for 4 to 5 weeks, and now they stop going to work, and then you go to A&E, where they give you very strong painkillers, and unfortunately don't always have the time or necessary clinical experience to actually sit you down and do a full history and explain to you why your back pain is hurting so much. What we want to do is encourage people to stay active. 1 or 2 days of rest, maybe then you sit up and you start to bend your back very gently, very, very gently, and you focus on your breathing. One of the biggest problems people with back pain has is that they guard their back too much, and they tense their abdominals and they tense the spinal muscles, and they're just holding onto your back. If you squeeze your fist together as hard as you can and try and move your wrist around in a circle, it is not a comfortable movement because you're not using your muscles properly. You need to relax, you need relaxation. Go for a swim, go for a walk, whatever it is. Gradually increase your activity levels on a day-to-day basis. Alright? The second thing you want to keep in mind is that mental health, whilst most people don't like talking about it, is probably the single most important thing to look after when you have a back injury, or any other injury, but in particular the spine, I would say. And the reason for that is pain levels are adjusted based on your stress and anxiety. If you are stressed at work, if you cannot sleep, if you're worried about the future, if you're ruminating about something horrible happening in your spine, and if you don't trust your spine, if you lose your independence, your pain levels will shoot up massively, despite the fact that there has been no physical change to the spine at all. Looking after your mental health, go speak to your GP and mention to them that you're not feeling well and you're not coping. And like I said, come in and see someone like myself and we will address that with you properly. Value your mental health. It is the single most important thing when it comes to complex cases like this.
So, Andrew, tell us what happened to your arm.
Stupid arm. I need a scan, and I want an injection and a hug. No, I don't need a scan. This is the beauty of it. I was just playing football, and I suffered an injury a few days ago where I dislocated my right elbow, which is not a very pleasant injury. And as a result, I'm having what's called a hematoma, which is a collection of blood underneath the skin. Now, this doesn't actually hurt at all at the moment. I have taken a few painkillers over the last few days, but I'm going to use this as a brief example to explain how the level of trauma and damage you experience does not affect how it feels or the pain levels. I know that this will rehab. I know it will take a few months. I know I can't do everything exactly the same way as I want to for the next few months, but I know it will be fine after that. There's nothing progressively bad that is going to happen to this elbow. It is not like Parkinson's, it is not like MS that deteriorates and gets worse over time. This is a small, brief, acute injury that hurts, but will be fine later down the line. And my approach to this injury and my own mental health, as I experience it, is essentially helping me to cope at the moment. I offload it. I'm within the first couple of days. It's perfectly reasonable that I use one of these to take the weight off it for a few days. But after I've seen my surgeon and he tells me, hopefully, that I don't need any other interventions on it, I will start moving it again, and I will start stretching it, and I will put weight through it, and it will hurt, and it will have a certain level of pain involved in it. That's part of rehab, just like walking on a sprained ankle. But if I hadn't done that, and if I get afraid, and if I stop moving my arm, it will atrophy, and it will get stiff, and it will get painful, and then that will increase the fear avoidance, as we say. It will increase my fear of moving my arm. And that is where we start to develop complicated musculoskeletal problems, just like back pain. I'm fine. It hurts, but I'm fine. And I will be fine. Stay tuned. Good to go?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Katrina, for the opportunity to share a little bit about this wonderful but very complicated topic of back pain. There's no way you can cover what you need to know in a few minutes. I hope if you take any messages away from this, it is that everyone will at some point have pain in your spine, in the back. Most of it goes away by itself, and the ones that don't, they can be tricky, but we can help you. Every single person can get better from back pain. There's not a single person in the world that cannot improve, if not somewhat, slightly, a little bit, or completely from back pain. All right? If you have any problems, come and see us.